In June of 2006, Superman returned to theaters after almost 20 years of being absent at the cinema. Now, this seems to be a quite unpopular opinion if you're to dig into the different channels and backwoods articles on the worldwide interweb, but I'm here today to tell you why Superman Returns is the best Superman film that's been made to date. So I got a little Superman Returns maroon drink going on here. Let's dig in. Okay, so up until the release of Superman Returns, the previous film was Superman 4, A Quest for Peace, and that came out in 1987, 19 years earlier. And the colossal failure of that piece of garbage film caused the studios to kind of throw their hands up in the air and wonder, how do we take care of this? How do we come back from this? And apparently it took nearly 2 decades before they were able to come up with a solution to that. And part of that solution was tapping into some of the success and genius of Bryan Singer, who had just come off of revitalizing the entire comic book movie industry. In 1999, I swear it was 1999, although if I look it up online, it says 2000. That's one of those weird memory versus what's written down type things. But in any case, X-Men came to theaters and blew audiences away and completely rejuvenated the superhero genre on film. Before then, of course, we had the first Superman in 1978 by Richard Donner. Fantastic film. Superman 2, the follow-up to that, incredible. Superman 3 started to slide quite a bit. I still like that film a lot, really. I think Richard Pryor's pretty good. I think the plot's good. It's fun. Superman 4 just takes a nosedive, unfortunately for Christopher Reeve, who really put himself into that film. It just didn't work out. It was full of campy stuff, and just that could be a whole video in itself. In any case, X-Men and then X2, helmed by Bryan Singer, were huge, and they blew everything up. We can't forget about 1989's Batman by Tim Burton and Batman Returns that followed that up. And then we had this downfall of the Joel Schumacher films with Batman Forever and Batman Returns that kind of just sort of lost the audience interest. And so we had then Spider-Man and so on and so forth. But in any case, X-Men is really what brought that back and opened the door for Spider-Man and all these other superhero films that came after it. So interesting little tidbit about Superman Returns and the X-Men films. Bryan Singer, of course, directed X-Men and X2, and then he was set to direct X-Men 3, X-Men United. I think that's what it was called. In any case, there was a little switcheroo between the director who was originally signed on to do Superman Returns and Bryan Singer, who was doing X-Men 3, and they ended up just full-on swapping movies. They traded films. So one way that I've always kind of looked at this is, it would have been great if we had gotten a third really excellent X-Men movie, and I think if Bryan Singer had been involved in X-Men 3, that would have been fantastic. It would have been a much better movie than what ended up in theaters. But on the flip side, we got the best Superman movie that had ever been made, and still that's been made to date. Nothing that's come after it even comes close. So there's a little bit of the backstory. Let's try not to make this a 30, 40-minute video, so I'll just jump right in. First of all, you've got Brandon Routh. Absolutely a tribute to him. The look, the sound of his voice, the way that he plays him. It's important to say that this really is a tribute, and that Superman Returns is not a reboot. This was not a reboot of a film at all. This was a direct sequel, really, to Superman and Superman 2. And it did such an excellent job at doing that in an age where rebooting franchises is just so prevalent, and even was at that time. It would have been much easier for the studios to say, okay, let's go ahead with a brand new idea. Let's take a fresh look at Superman, and they didn't do that. They did that with Man of Steel, and personally, I don't care for any of the new iterations of Superman that have come after that, and all the stuff on Krypton, and the character choices that they made. Entertaining movies, but they're not good movies, maybe, but not good Superman movies. So at least we got this one out of there, a real direct sequel to the stuff that came before it, and it was just fantastic. So in that sense, Brandon Routh was playing an absolute tribute to Keanu Reeves, and it was so appropriate that he looked like him, sounded like him, and played both Clark Kent and Superman in such a honorary way to what had been done before. That was fantastic. Kevin Spacey as Lex Luthor. It was fantastic. Maniacal, crazy Lex Luthor. It was great. I loved the way that he played him. I really think the only person who could have done a better job is Gene Hackman. Since this was a direct sequel, and we had the Superman character really paying tribute to that, man, that would have been something else to see Gene Hackman. And maybe the age difference would have thrown people off at that point. That's possible. He was getting pretty old at that point. Maybe it wouldn't have worked as well. But as far as Kevin Spacey goes, I think the only other person that would have maybe been better would have been Gene Hackman to reprise that role. But in the end, it doesn't matter. He comes back. The writing is terrific. The way he plays the character is fantastic, and Lex Luthor's plan is so Lex Luthor in this movie. I just love every minute of it. Of course, then the rest of the supporting cast, notably Kate Bosworth as Lois Lane, absolutely no complaints there. Fantastic job, played it to a T. It just works. The emotional level, the disconnect from Clark Kent and Superman after being gone for 5 years, not knowing, without even a goodbye, not knowing where he went, absolutely loved it. It played really well. She moved on but was still clinging to something, and it just landed it. And I loved Lois Lane's character in the movie, too. She didn't take any BS from anyone, just like in the 70s. And she was the one that was the driving force of really the story of digging into this. By defying what she was supposed to be doing and going after the real story and saying, look, I don't care about this whole Superman thing. This is the real story. The power outage is the real story. We got to get down to it, which is what leads to her accidentally bumping into Lex Luthor in that great scene where they come face to face, neither of them expecting the other one to be there, and just like, Lex Luthor? And he's got the toothbrush in his mouth. Oh, it's Lane. It's fantastic. And then, of course, Parker Posey in this film. I love her in I was introduced to her in things like Dazed and Confused and the Christopher Guest movies. She's terrific. Everything she's in, she plays all these different parts and she just melts into every character, and she does the same thing with Kitty Kowalski in this movie, and being kind of a sidekick to Lex Luthor. There's this other kind of twist there, where she's actually really snark and sarcastic, and love that whole moment in the middle of the film where she just starts making fun of him, the whole...
I mean, Kitty, what did my father used to say to me?
You're losing your hair?
Before that.
Get out.
And then, of course, notably as well to the success in my eyes of what made Superman Returns so great, you got to give credit to John Ottman, the composer for the film, who not only did they reuse John Williams' score, which was brilliant, the whole opening title sequence for the film is fantastic. It's just an updated version with much better visual graphics. of what we saw in 1978. The trip that he takes from Krypton in the pod all the way to Earth, flying through wormholes in space and dodging around planets and getting slingshotted around suns and all of this, using John Williams' score with the same graphics, the title sequence graphics coming at you, just gorgeous. And what a way to open up that film and make that just like, okay, we're jumping right back in. Here's what it is, people. This is the feel of the movie is gonna come straight out of 1978, and that's what it was for the rest of the film. Using John Williams' original compositions, just fantastic. And then he didn't stray too far from the formula and the melodies, incorporating those into his own original compositions throughout the rest of the film. And if you haven't noticed, the score, the musical choices to a film are massive as far as how that film comes across. You can change the score to a film and it'll change the entire feel of everything. All of the imagery, all of the dialogue, all of the delivery can stay exactly the same. But if you pull that music out and you put in something else, it changes everything. So it's always important to recognize that, yeah, that music is a big part of what's going on and how the whole thing comes together. And it's interesting because as filmmakers, and I've had a little bit of experience in this, which has just been really tremendous. But as the filmmakers are putting everything together and putting the edits together and the cuts and everything, the score is pretty much the last thing that gets put in place. You know, visual effects and things like that. There's a number of things that fall in the last place, but wow, you have to really have that edit down before you can lock in the composition and record it and put it to picture. And so it's usually one of the very last things that comes into place. So up until that point, you can be working on a film for a year and not really get that feel from it. And then that music goes in and, oh man, it's just, it grabs you. It's really a cool experience. So moving on, like I said, I don't want to make this half an hour, 40 minutes. So I'll try to move along as best I can. So of course we know he flew back to Krypton. Their astronomers found some evidence that there might be part of Krypton left, so he took off without a word and was gone for 5 years. So this is, of course, Superman returning, and now he comes back, and nobody knows he's quite there yet, but he is. And so then we get the rescue sequence of the shuttle and the airplane that are doing this test launch, and they have a malfunction, and now they're all in danger. Nothing's going right. They're locked together, and this shuttle is still attached to the aircraft, to the airplane, with Lois Lane on board, getting hurled out into space. They're all doomed. This is bad news. But of course, this didn't just happen totally by accident. It was actually caused by Lex Luthor, meddling around with crystals from Krypton. So it's just all the layers come back together. He's finally out of prison. So much to talk about there. But Superman, that whole sequence coming in, grabbing the plane, ripping the wings off, and landing it on the baseball field in front of thousands of cheering fans, being the reintroduction to Superman to be in the universe. That, whoa, not only is Superman back, but whoa, he's back in a really big public way and averted a national disaster that was live on television happening. Just it's just gets you. It's like, whoa, so Superman, so great. The whole concept of Lex Luthor being released from prison. He didn't escape this time. He was released. And why was he released? Not for good behavior, but because Superman was called as a witness to an appeal hearing, and he was the key witness, and he didn't show up because he wasn't there. And there's this great line Lex has later in the movie about, Superman's real great at swooping in and catching the bad guy, but not real good at the details like due process. And to tie that into how Lex Luthor ends up getting out of jail out of prison is brilliant. Not to mention that then how does he have resources to start his next evil plan immediately? Well, he was courting this super rich widow and just conned her, just totally conned her out of her fortune, and that all of that is just so Lex Luthor. It makes so much sense, and it's so fun to watch. It's a little off-putting as well, which, you know, the lengths that Lex will go to get what he wants. So just terrific aspects setting up this story. The special effects in the movie are fantastic. They're updated, but the movie is not just an action-packed special effects extravaganza like so many movies were becoming in that area. It wasn't just action sequence after action sequence after action sequence. In fact, one complaint in the film is that Superman doesn't throw a single punch in the entire movie. And that doesn't bother me at all. I love it. There's the great sequence where he stops the robbery on the rooftop, and they've got the bad guy's got these machine guns and everything, and bullets are just bouncing off of him, and the guy whips around with the pistol. And this is how you use special effects to demonstrate Superman on the big screen in 2006 with modern special effects. It fires a bullet point blank right into his eye, and we see the slow motion bullet just crunch up on his eye and fall to the ground. You know, just like, really? Superman looks at him like, really, dude? Not gonna happen. Come on, give up now. Stop fighting. Those kind of things were great. Him flying around, saving people. Really looks like he's flying now. In 1978, Christopher Reeves made us believe that Superman could fly and that it was real. You look at it now, and it's so dated and campy. It's silly. Superman Returns made it look real. It made it look really real, and it was fantastic. All these things, all the action set pieces were just in the right place. But it was really a story about love and coming home, being lost, not having a home, not being sure if you're needed or not. Of course, they tie in the fact that Superman has a son with Lois Lane, and she wasn't quite sure that it was his or wants to deny that it was his. And then there's a great reveal of that where all of a sudden, 3/4 of the way through the movie, the kid just, when his mom's in trouble, just throws a grand piano across the room and takes out the bad guy that's threatening his mom. Yeah, again, it just terrific. Superman gets beat in this movie. He gets beat. He doesn't see it coming. Lex builds this island with kryptonite fused with crystals from Krypton to build this new land, and Superman lands. He doesn't even see it coming, and all of a sudden, Lex Luthor is throwing punches and taking Superman down, and it's like, whoa, Superman, whenever he gets into a situation where there's a chance he's going to get beat for real, it raises the stakes quite a bit. They did that very well. They utilized the fact that he draws his power from the sun in our solar system, the yellow sun, and he gets free of that. Lois helps him, and it gets up there, and he takes on all that energy from our sun and comes back to finish the deal, and then pushes himself to the very end of his capabilities by getting that whole island, that whole new continent that Lex Luthor is building, and picks it up off planet Earth, takes it out into space, and throws it out into space. Hopefully not causing other problems along the way as that thing travels on, but we'll let that slide. And that beats him up to the point where he just falls right back down to Earth and crashes, and we think he's dead. We have the kind of death of Superman sort of sequence that goes on, and the people of Earth don't know what else to do but try to help him and treat him like a human being. So they throw him into a hospital bed, and they're trying to inject him with needles, and they're just breaking off on the skin. It's just like, we're going to try, but what can we do? It's the Man of Steel. We can't do anything. But yeah, he makes it. He makes it through. Spoiler alert, 2006. If you haven't seen the movie by now, I don't know. Maybe this will inspire you to go check it out. And I'm ruining the second viewing or the third viewing for you. Whatever. This movie's been out long enough that I'm not really too worried about spoilers in it. In any case, I think that basically sums up my argument. The movies that came before it were great. 1978 was overly long. I think we revere it a little bit more than is due. It was amazing for the time. It was really great. It was kind of long. Its pacing is actually not very good. There's a lot of sequences that slow way down and then ramp up. The pacing is not very good. Superman 2, also a great movie. I love the three villains that come from Krypton and are stacked up against Superman. I love how that's tied into the beginning of the first film where they're trapped in the glass and this is their punishment for the crimes they've committed to try and overthrow the rule of Jor-El and everybody. That movie's really good too. Again, maybe a little bit more reverence is given to that film than it's due. But because of the time that it was made and what it did for that time, it's really great. It stands up pretty good. It's a good film. I'm not trying to take anything away from those original films. Superman 3 is kind of campy and silly. It's Lex Luthor's not even in it. They're skiing on the tops of ski resorts set up on the tops of skyscraper in Metropolis. It's just, the robot people at the end. I like it for nostalgic purposes, so I'll watch it every once in a while, but it's not really a good movie. 4, Quest for Peace, toss it out the window, don't even bother. Then after Superman Returns, we got Man of Steel, that basically threw the character of Superman out the window. Good action movie, fun movie, I guess. I don't know. I don't think it's stupid. And then we start moving into Batman v Superman. I don't know. Everything Zack Snyder did, in my opinion, was crap. Entertaining action movies, fine, sure. Justice League, okay, I guess. Maybe we need to see this Snyder cut of that. But I don't see how it could really be any better based on the 2 films he made previous to it. So Joss Whedon is a better director anyway. So probably Justice League turned out better than the Justice League. See, I don't know. I don't even care. But those 3 movies, they're not any good. They're not good Superman movies. They're just not really good movies. Anyway, so for all of these reasons, this is why I make the assertion, even though it's an unpopular opinion, that Superman Returns is the best Superman movie that's been made to date. And I don't think we're going to get another one like it. They kind of abandoned that quite a while ago. And I don't think assertion is a word. I think assertion was the word I was looking for. But rather than editing it out, I'll just remain human and leave it the way it is. So thanks again for stopping by. Hopefully I get this in maybe under the 20-minute mark so it's not super long. But apparently I start talking and that's it. Thanks for tuning in. Check out other videos. More to come. I think another video that I'd like to put together here in the near future is another unpopular opinion, which is why Star Trek Generations is one of the better Star Trek movies and certainly doesn't deserve the hatred that it gets online and absolutely does not deserve being called one of the worst Star Trek movies. It's nowhere near that. It's actually, as far as I'm concerned, it's right there up in probably the top 3. Say it with me now. Wrath of Khan, Undiscovered Country, and then Generations, I think. Be good to one another.